Salam, salam, ya what? Man, that's beautiful music. Peace for all. Haile, Maskaram, salam, how my brothers and sisters doing? Today I bring to you two special guests. You guys already know Jonas Waldu, our brother Ahmed Mohammed from EANC, Dankalia. um, First, I'll let our guest introduce himself, and then we'll get into the discussion topics. Welcome, Ahmed. How are you doing, brother?
Well, thank you very much, Captain and Brother Jonas. It's a pleasure to see you once again. It's been a while, but it's always a pleasure having this type of discussion with your audience.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Tell us who you are and what you do, sir.
So, like you said, I am Ahmed Yusuf Mohammed. I am the president of Eritrean Afar National Congress. So my organization is dedicated to fighting the fight of self-determination for the Afar in Eritrea, and we strive to promote multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious constitutional model for governance for Eritrea's future democratic transition. We also fight this tyrannical system that has been subjecting our population into crimes against humanity, mass displacement, poverty, and assimilationist agenda. So that's what, in a nutshell, what our organization was formed to fight for the liberations of Afar people in Eritrea.
Thank you, brother Ahmed. Our brother Jonas Waldu, how you doing, brother? Welcome.
Thank you. Pretty good. Thank you, Captain. So yeah, my name is Jonas Waldu with the Global Yaakal Diplomacy Department and also Team Freedom. And I'm here pretty much to advocate decentralization and to explain, along with Ahmed and Captain, to explain what it is and what it means and how it can benefit all Eritreans. And I'm a big advocate for inclusivity, big advocate for justice, and big advocate for democracy. So that's what we are. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, I work with you all the time, so I know you very well. We caused some damage together, as well as our brother Ahmed. When we first took on this Afar mission, I was not well aware of a lot of Afar history. I knew of the Afar, but not the history and the differences in Ethiopian Afar, Eritrean Afar. Not that there's differences, but what makes them special, right? Indigenous people, why they didn't have a voice. For some reason, Tigrina speakers, we always think that Eritrea is Tigrina. That's and then once you start studying it deeper, you're like, oh my God, there's so many layers to Eritrea, so many tribes, languages, cultures. Like it's beautiful. But the smaller the tribe, whether the Eritrean Afar 600,000 or 400,000, the less voice they have. So it is our duty, our brothers and sisters, to ensure that they have a voice. When we meet at that round table, they have to have a voice. They have to be able to be like, we want this, we don't want this. Just because you're the majority doesn't mean you're correct. That's life. Each tribe should have a vote, whether it's in the political arena or economic arena or whatever. Um, as the opening statements are finished, we would like to start with what's on today's agenda, gentlemen. Today's agenda was the decentralization of government, right? Now, when you say that, and I want everybody to understand what that means, uh, what does that mean when you say decentralized? Someone wrote when we put the poster up for this show tonight, you guys need to define what decentralization is. Are we decentralizing economics, politics, uh, schools? What are we decentralizing? And I thought to myself, I was like, how out of touch can this person be? What school is he talking about in Eritrea? Is he talking about what university are we decentralizing? Like what which part of Eritrea? Like it almost seemed like in his brain there is a solid government, there is a university, there is a voting system, to where he was trying to object and say we need to speak of these topics. I'm like, well, that's an easy one. We're talking about creating, not destroying. You know what I mean? I'll let brother Ahmed go.
Thank you, brother Captain. I mean, the topic you've chosen here is very, very important, especially in the background of what is going on in our region. Given also the main, I think it is critically important for us as the opposition bloc, democratic oppositions in diaspora. Um, there's always been discussions in removing the tyrant, the tyrannical regime, but increasingly now at this time there has been it looks like a genuine uh, motivations or genuine discussions going on at the political organizations, civic organizations. At least I'm aware of 6 or 7 groups that are talking about how to militarily get involved in removing the regime. This is very it's always been there, but it is increasingly becoming those voices are becoming very vocal and timely too. So as an Afar Eritreans, we are in agreement on that, but there's always have been a dividing force, or if you wish. There is mistrust or divisions amongst the Eritrean opposition. And there's always been that elusive unity. Everyone talks about unity, forming a united front, but there's always been this gap and bringing, even when we speak to other nations who mean well to see democratic transition happen in Eritrea, they always bring up this. There's so many political organizations. It has been very difficult for them to do something as a unit. So there's always been that division amongst the political opposition groups. So uh, the topic today, we believe, is a solution for why we are being so divided for all these years, why we have been united. So in the background of this discussion, I think the topic you chose for decentralized federation for Eritrea is very critical. Unless somebody like an Afar or any other nations, nationalities in Eritrea, want to be a player in tomorrow's Eritrea democratic transition, unless groups like Afar see themselves in this united front. When I say see themselves, I don't mean in terms of just having the FR as a just fill in the blank or just a sidekick, but I'm talking about a genuine democratic unified structure, governance structure that includes the rights of the Afar people, where the Afar can have autonomous region where they can flourish as a people, not as Ahmed as individual, but as a group, because that's what we promote and that's what we want to see. It's a nation. Afar is a nation that predates the current state of Eritrea. So this is where the division comes in, and unless we see our these agreements are done, even in a draft model, that this way that people like Afar and people like Konamas and people like those who are marginalized and have to have a voice in the future of Eritrea. So this is why it's very critical that you choose this model of governance for Eritrea, which I am very fond of, and hardly always promoting the multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious federation that respects group rights as well as individual rights. So this is really a good topic, and I'm very glad that you have raised to discuss it today.
Thank you, brother Ahmed. Jonas, would you like to add to that?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So the basically centralization versus decentralization, right? Centralization is what we have now in Eritrea, where everything's centralized. Decentralization is when the power is shared, and you have different regions governing their own governments, similar to where you live now if you're a diaspora. So that's decentralization. And so, with that, the reason why it's ideal for what we got going on is because of the diversity that we have. Um, no one can take away your ethnicity. No one can take away your culture unless they do it by force, and that doesn't work. And so, by having a decentralized system, by default, you're able to support that, and then by having a constitution, you're able to protect that, especially if you have abiding citizens for the majority. And that's the critical thing. So I hope that kind of makes sense on the decentralization part. So give you a quick example of some decentralized governments that fits the population of Eritrea. We can go from Botswana, Singapore, Liberia, and I got some more. If you guys want to research it yourself and learn which countries are decentralized versus who are centralized, you'll start understanding that it is possible. So you can go on the website and type in world population, and then sequence it in a way where you can see populations of like 6 million, 5 million, 4 million, 3 million. You'll see a lot of people. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you on how it would work for Eritrea, and I'll give you evidence of it as well. But it's going to be at the end of the video. But the point is, decentralization, the biggest part is representation. It's sharing power. It's allowing regions to govern their own region. At the same time, having an element of centralization in terms of currency, in terms of security, in terms of sharing resources and things like that. So the key is to focus on no oppression, focus on justice, focus on recognizing each culture, including the indigenous people. That's the key. A good way to explain decentralization in government is that the states legitimize the center, not the other way around. That's perfect, Abel. Yeah. So good ways to explain decentralization: the states legitimize the center, and not the other way around. That's fair. The power comes from the people. So go ahead, Captain, with the next question. I can't hear you, Captain. Go ahead.
That's a perfect breakdown. I like the way Abdul explains that as well. There are a few questions I do have for you. I mean, there's a
Is
lot of belief.
Ahmed?
There's a lot.
Is it static?
Hey,
Is it me
I
or
can,
is Captain static?
I can. Yeah, there was a kind of a little bit, but I can
Can
hear
you guys
well
hear
now.
me?
Yes, it's good. Oh,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Captain.
You guys got. I think you got to mute while I'm speaking so the static can go. Probably. All right, I'm gonna take you out of solo layout. Let's see.
Yeah, I
Ahmed,
think I'm gonna leave and come back in because for some reason you sound staticky on my end.
yeah, just mute for a second. Here, let me. There, is that better? Ahmed, can you hear me though?
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you,
Okay,
Captain.
perfect. Jonas, yeah, Jonas, exit and come back in. So no, so Ahmed, let's continue. What is the centralization versus decentralization of governance? What does that really mean? Centralization versus decentralization.
Well, to give you an example, there's a lot of scholarly articles about this, but just to give you an example of the current reality where I live in, for example, if we take two of the nations, for example, Eritrea and Canada, for example, you would have in Eritrea the example of federal versus central. Eritrea, for example, is extremely excessively centralized nation. All the personal freedoms, including personal free individual freedoms, as well as group freedoms, are controlled by a tyrant, as you know, by a centralist military junta. Nobody has a say, let alone governance. They don't have a personal freedom. So in Eritrea, the political, the cultural, the economical aspects of citizens and regions and groups are all controlled by the center, and including the lands, the resources, the economy, um, the way of life, everything that we cherish here in North America are controlled by the center. So now people will probably say, um, Eritrea does not have a constitution, but you cannot compare Eritrea to Canada. But um, the even though Eritrea do not have the constitution, um, remember the constitution that is 1997 constitution, are that unimplemented constitution. It's actually works through the governments try to legitimize itself by using this constitution, especially if you take a land rights, for example. The land rights for Afar people as indigenous people were controlled and governed by their customary laws. So what this government did is they broke down the customary laws of the Afar people. That was where how the Afar used to govern themselves economically, politically, socially. So basically, the government is interfering in every aspect of the society, in the land and the resources. For example, the what is happening in the Red Sea right now, bringing in international players to take over the Afar land, because the government will say everything here state owns everything, the land, above the water, the sea coast, the minerals, everything controlled by the center. This is where the the constitutional aspect of Eritrea uh, is playing its part. Even though it's not, there is unimplemented constitution in the country. It was designed so that the center can take away all these rights from the provinces or people, such as the Afar. So this is one extreme angle of centralization. If you look at Canada, for example, Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories. Um, no central government or federal government can interfere either politically, economical aspect of the region. There is understanding, mutual understanding of sharing power, sharing economy, sharing, including governance. So, for example, in these 10 provinces, there is, if you look at Quebec, for example, in Canada, it's a unique ethnically French province, which is their ethnic identity is protected in the Constitution of Canada. So this province has control over their politics. They elect their a member of parliament. They send those a member of parliament to the center, the federal. They advocate for their province. They protect the language, their culture, including immigration, including so many things that federal constitution and decentralized constitution provides. So you look at the overall benefit for the people individually or group or regional, according to region. There is a great benefit of having this dividing the power between the center and the peripheries or the provinces. So it's incomparable. I mean, the benefits are, you know you cannot compare it. So for Eritrea to go in this path, the path of Canada, the path of the way of European Union, for example, the Switzerland, Belgium, United States, all of these nations are good examples of, I mean, advanced democracies in the world that everyone is living in peace and harmony. So there you have it.
Everyone says decentralization is usually the most desirable, scholars, only because decentralization, for those who don't know what that means, is the transfer of authority from central to local government, right? Which means the people would be running their own government, basically, kind of like California's governor would like run California, and then whenever the actual country needs some sort of assistance or help, then they would feed upwards to the actual government, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
I have Babat Hailumaram here, uh,
Hello,
leader.
everybody.
How you doing, sir? Welcome.
Nice to
Abdi
see you.
Gala Chifana Kalo Aboy. Galat
Uh,
Salamat ga. Abdi Gala Abkadmi to camera Galat Salima lo.
It's in front of the
okay.
camera.
Maybe this
There you
There
is
you
go.
go.
Yeah.
Now you have
There
it.
you go.
how about that.
Welcome. Tell us who you are before we begin, and I'll go into continuing the questions. Tell us your credentials, who you are, and to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me. Uh, my name is Haile Mariam Tasfai. I can talk representing the new Eritrean uh, United National Front, but also I also work on the capacity of the diplomatic task force of the Eritrean political forces, and I also a member of the executive committee of ENCDC Baito. So I, at any level from my organization to the political forces, I work in the foreign relations offices. So today, to be specific, I can address the new Eritrean United National Front. So that could to limit the scope, because if I mix things, I may be in trouble. Then
Okay,
I
that's
better
fair.
focus on this. So nice meeting you guys again, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. So we were discussing decentralization versus centralization. How decentralization is usually most desirable by most people or politicians in country. I shouldn't say politicians because politicians love centralization, technically, but we could continue. There's an array of questions that I do have. We did cover what is centralization versus decentralization of governors. But before we continue on the centralization versus decentralization, I would like to ask Brother Ahmed, Afar, what makes Afar unique? Why is Afar now suddenly the most discussed group of people within the indigenous tribes within Eritrea? Lately, for the past 6 months, I've been hearing a lot about Afar, Afar, Afar. People have been screaming, talk about Afar. I'm like, I'm here, I'm listening. Why is Afar important? Why is Afar important as far as location in Eritrea? Why is Afar important as far as location and economics in relation to Eritrea? I'm not going to cover Ethiopia because I'm all, at the moment speaking of Eritrea. I understand there's Afar in Ethiopia, Djibouti, in certain areas, right? So could you elaborate on that for us?
Very important question that you raised. Um, the FR situations have always been, I guess, one of discussing with various people. They
I think
say,
lighting would be much better than what I was before, right?
Yeah,
there
that
you
was
go.
good. That
Yeah,
was
That's
you're
good.
much better.
you're much better.
So, in terms of the FR, why are the FR in this all of a sudden in the talk of
Limelight.
the situation? You know, it is in a way we are blessed and we are cursed at the same time. So the situation that we find ourselves in, especially in Eritrea, are it's not something new, um, but the geopolitics, the strategic, the strategic uh, geostrategic location itself have made us the target of both internal and external um, victims. For example, starting from the colonialism in 1800s, late 1800s, the when the world power discussed the colonization of Africa, uh, the first ship that sailed came to the Afar homeland, to Dankalia. Okay, and from that day on, the Afar have never been the same. Prior to that, this was a nation that governed itself. This was a nation, indigenous nation, like everywhere else. If you go to everywhere, including Canada, where I live in, the indigenous First Nations, where their life is basically disrupted by the colonial forces. So the Afar situation is the same. So when the colonialists arrived in Assab in 1869, uh, they have basically there was major confrontation between the Afar and the colonialist. The Afar put up the force, but they could not match the superpowers of the time, the Italian colonization. Prior to that, in similarly in Djibouti, the same thing have the French colonized it. So thousands of the Afar sacrificed their lives, including their kings, including their sultans. Some of them were being taken away into foreign lands, and their bodies never returned. The Afar sultans were taken to Madagascar, to Italy, in number of areas that the history in the at the time the Abyssinian history did not recognize. Now you will see the Ethiopian highlands or Ethiopians claiming that Ethiopia one of the nation that has never been colonized. Guess what? That's because of the Afar put up the fight. We were buffer zone that we are the buffers for these colonialists first arrived, and we defended this land. Thousands of our people sacrificed their lives, and because of that, their political, their economic, their social structure have been dismantled. So it has been it has been it we've been living like day-to-day life because of this. Perhaps those who are advantaged in the higher lands and higher plateau of the regions were secured, and they had opportunity to develop their language, their culture, their economy. But unfortunately for the Afar, we have been fighting to save our lives since the day one. And currently, the current regime in Eritrea is basically the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say. He's been one of the worst regime that have visited the region, not just for the Afar, as you know, for everybody else, but specifically for the Afar, because it has invited people like United Arab Emirates. It invited colonialists, today's colonialists, like the mining corporations. On all of this is to push us back, take away our economy, take away our freedom, take away our structure. So all of this is to say that we are blessed because we have proud people who can put up a fight against anybody, know their identity, they know their territory, they know their history, but at the same time we are facing a very challenging time from both from within and also from the external forces. So we need the support basically. Thank you.
Perfect. No, perfect. That's excellent. Eloquently stated. I appreciate that. So no, that gives us a basic understanding why Dankalia, why Afar State is important in relation to Eritrea and how we could work together to build a better nation in Eritrea. And when Eritrea is liberated, my hopes are we get people in leadership positions that can enable the Afar State, and ensure that their voice is heard, and maybe even capitalize on their local potash, and become one of the richest people within Eritrea. Why not? Is their land, right? So that's my
Yeah.
thought process. So the next
Actually,
question.
Captain, if I may add, the geopolitics aspects. Right now, people talk about the current superpowers. I talk about the then superpowers of like Italy. Right now, you have the the Chinese, you have the Germans, you have the U.S.,
UAE.
UAE. You have all of these superpowers are sitting in the homeland of the Afar people. I mean, you look at this, like I said, the geopolitics, the region itself is so political that it is galvanized the entire the policy in the United States, in the European Union, in the Soviet, in Russia, in China. Everyone is looking into this region. Guess what? When the elephants fight, like they say, it's the grass that hurts the most. So we are the grass that is hurting currently.
Absolutely. Your population is decreased significantly. When you're a total of 600,000 people and you dwindle to 400,000, that is catastrophic. It isn't like
Absolutely.
10 million going down to 9.7. You're
Yeah.
losing, a lot of people. So my next question is,
Not
Abu
not to
Halamadim.
mention the not to mention the ethnic
Right,
discrimination policies
right.
by
Mhm.
Isaias.
Basically, ethnic cleansing as a foreign country occupies your land with the
Yeah.
shoot to kill policy as they steal from you. It's ridiculous. Abu Halamariam, do you feel the opposition's call to remove the regime from power first is justified without looking at how to govern Eritrea? For example, everybody says free Eritrea, but no one really knows how to free Eritrea, right? And as the youth is listening and watching, uh, I know we're late at night. Later on tomorrow, you'll see this go up, more views. People start watching. We all want to free Eritrea. We all dance about it. We all drink about it. But how do you free Eritrea? What are the first steps? Is this helmidi, nahalim dina zelana, or can this truly be attainable? Go ahead, sir. Let me unmute you.
He's on mute.
Add on the strategic importance of Dankalia or ASAP, in addition to what my brother Ahmed described. Number one, it's more than a half of the 1,000 kilometers that we have a coastal line in the Red Sea. So Dankalia is it's a it's a long sea, with a long sea coast. Number two, uh, it has been a point of interest for so many forces after the Yemeni war or the Yemen-Saudi war, because after Isaias changed his solidarity with the Houthi towards the Sunnis. It was made to be a prison for the prisoners of war, the Yemenis. They were bringing them to that cost for to jail them. So that's another criminal black history on the spot, to bring prisoners of war from a brotherly land of Yemen to our land, which is a black mark. Number three, this the the United Arab Emirates are interested in uh, in building ports. They are very competitive internationally. They once during Bush administration, they even want to improve or administer all the United States ports, and the whole nation went bizarre and said, how can a third world country come and administer our ports? And they dropped the contract. So they are interested to administer our ports, and they are interested to administer the Port Sudan, and they are interested to include other ports in the Somali and Somaliland. So in that way, they have economic interest. They want to invest, and once they invest in a port, it's almost forever, because they have to maintain the port and administer the port, and their influence grows as they settle there, and they really add military uh, component to to secure their national interest. That's why it is very, very scary for the United Arab Emirates as a military power or as a naval power to be in ASAP. Uh, and through their agreement of the Saudi, Egyptian, Emirate, and Eritrean access, um, like 2 3 years ago, uh, the Ethiopian Navy was brought into the formula, which was nowhere to be which was nowhere to exist. Isaias Afwerki, because of his future plans of uh, um, uh, unity with Ethiopia, he brought them in. You never bring uh, a naval force to your own port, for what? So this added to the component of militarizing the Assab port by having the Ethiopian naval force there. In fact, they called all the imperial naval force cadets and commanders for retraining and reorganizing the Ethiopian naval forces. So they after that, the interest of Emirate was intertwined with the Ethiopian interest as well. So in this, to guarantee their mutual um interest in ASAP, uh, they took side in the war, and because the Ethiopian government, the Eritrean government arrangements. We don't know it's peaceful arrangement or it is a federal or confederal. We don't even know the details of it. But Emirates, became part of this, and it took side. And it's very, very, very dangerous to take side and attack the Tigrayans, and that scares you more if Eritrea becomes liberated or free now from from the dictatorship of Isaias Afwerki, for them to stay there would be disastrous as well. Because if anything happens between us, between Eritreans, because if things were happening between Ethiopians, Tigrayans against Ethiopians, if they take side here, there is no reason why they wouldn't take side if we have a civil war in Eritrea. They will take side. That's why they shouldn't be there. So that's the whole military and economic interest side that I wanted to add. But you said is that a dream, or can it materialize to in fact what we need to eliminate the PFDJ dictatorship in Eritrea is unity. We are not united yet, but it's coming. It's coming now. From what we see, the Eritrean political forces are coming together, and the political organizations that are interested or took the path to take arms are also on the ground now, like the Eritrean United National Front now, consisting of 7 organizations, is there since last month. So the developments, it will change the whole spectrum of military situation in the area now. And besides this, the AKL movement is also with its other 7 groups or 6 other members of a coalition are also coming towards this strategic one command army to liberate the country. So this is the second one. And the third is also not to make it, or I mean the third one, but not the last, is the Asenna Alena coalition of media, which they call National Eritrean National Front. And all this, if you see it, it took like 2 years to come together. But from what I see now, is we'll have a whole Asanna Allana and other, Teddy Press, Erisat, Maskaram, Awate, all this media conglomerates will be, or like websites. They are not in conglomerate area yet, but all this will be united to tell the world that we are fighting the enemy together. And then we have the 7 organizations that declared last month, and we have the 7 following them, and all this are under the Eritrean political forces. The good thing is, eventually, will be or the army that we establish, for example, will be under one charter. It's not going to be different armies fighting here and there. All the political forces, be it the other 7, or the political organization, or BITO, ENCDC, they all agreed to have one charter. And that charter is also very transformative. It's not only, it doesn't only talk about removing the enemy or PFDJ from governing Eritrea, but it also has all the components on how to transition the process, which means, for example, if anything happens, either a coup d'etat or anything happens now, for a year, anyone that if there are people who overthrow the government, the charter has a position. It says this force will stabilize and secure safety of our people for a year. We're not going to say, no, they have not been fighting. They belong to PFDJ. They are nothing. No, we we put this in writing and in the charter. So there are all scenarios in the charter, but we all also agreed that the future of Eritrea will be Eritrea will be governed through a decentralized system. It's not going to be centralized like now. The government of Eritrea or the PFDJ or one person choose governors for every zone. Actually, they are generals. They are not even civilians that govern. We are not going to go through this again. We're not even going to go through the outrageous and the district officers were to govern before, or it will be the governors from city to the states or the outrageous will be uh, elected officials, and there will be I'm not, I will use a safe term, there will be autonomous governance for every region. I don't want to say anything else. So I get into other contradictory terminologies, but the Afaris will govern their area, and they will they will also participate in the federal government of Eritrea. So
Excellent.
every local area will be allowed to govern itself, and that's what we agreed now: decentralized system in Eritrea, not a centralized where one person elects every governor. And in case of Eritrea now, it's the generals. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. That was eloquently stated. Jonas Weldu, I know you've been dying for number two. So tell me, do you feel the opposition call to remove the regime from power first, right, is just or justified without looking into how to govern Eritrea? We all think we know how to govern Eritrea, but to govern Eritrea, regardless what type of experience you have, one, you must understand the complexity of Eritrea. What does that mean? Complexity of Eritrea. Complexity of Eritrea means whether it's Auraja or Biher or religion or indigenous or majority, minority. There's so many things within Eritrea you have to consider. I don't think leading Eritrea is an easy job. I don't wish that on anyone. But if selected, one would step up and do his job for his nation, right? Secondly, before you answer, Jonas, is this a pipe dream? Are we all just dreaming? Because there's a lot of hook dev that come in here and they say, continue to dream. Ain't nothing going to change. His son is going to take it. Go, Jonas.
Yeah. So the for the short answer on the dream part, no, this is not a dream. This is a reality. It's happening. And to answer the question, though, because Eritrea is a diverse nation, right? Decentralization is the way. And from what I'm hearing from Haile Mariam, decentralization is the understanding, is the agreement. What makes it work is when it's an agreement among the people who wants Eritrea to be liberated. That's what makes it work. So now we have an understanding of how it's going to be governed. Perfect. Now we have a Eritrean United National Front doing their business. Perfect. So that's where we are right now. So to the point was, if it was the other way around, where there was no agreement on how to govern, then it could potentially cause a problem. But because we have an understanding, it works. It works. They say they have a charter and so forth. In the event something happens and so forth, so they have an understanding. That's the critical part. The other part I wanted to add was no matter how the country is governed, right? One thing we got to respect is the indigenous rights. And I had the opportunity to read this real thick page, right? You can Google it. Just Google United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And in there, it explains what rights are, all the articles. I have some of my favorite articles that I read, and I can read it later on today. And it explains how it's the responsibility of the government to ensure the rights of the indigenous people. Because over the decades, over the years, they're the ones who are marginalized. If you're a nation that protects your indigenous people, guess what's going to happen? You're going to grow. You're going to be supported. You're going to have solidarity. If you don't respect your indigenous people, you're going to have strife. You're going to have fighting. You're going to have tension. It's not going to work. It's impossible. So to give you a backstory. In 1776, America was America, right? The revolution. They formed their constitution in 1787. When America was America, right, there was 2.5 million people in the population. Then fast forward to when the Constitution was implemented, right, democracy, decentralized, there was 4 million people implemented. So for anyone to tell me that we can't form a decentralized country, you're wrong. Because I just gave you an example of a nation that started off with 2.5 million people and 4 million people. And they changed their policy. They were oppressive too. They had slavery. Then they looked at the Constitution. Every man has equal rights. Okay. The next thing you know it, they evolved. They added amendments. They evolved and it grew. Now we have a population of 330 million people. And you as an Eritrean American, you as an Eritrean live in America as a diaspora, benefiting from the sacrifices of rights.
To add to what you said, Jonas, you see that date right there behind me? That's when the U.S. Army was.
Oh yeah, so the Army was 1775.
June 14, U.S. Army, 1775, after the nation was created.
Yep. Yeah. That's beautiful, brother. So, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we could hear you now.
So that's amazing because that just goes to tell you the Army came before the nation, right? So it's up to you to take action now to create the desired governance that you're looking for. There's no reason for you to be.
Wait, so correction. So you said the nation was created 1777?
1776, and the Army came before.
Right, because obviously you had to have a war for,
And then fast forward, the Constitution didn't materialize until 1787 because people were, debating on how it needs to be, right? Decentralized and so forth. Shared powers, House, Senate, executive branch, and so forth. So this is nothing new for Eritrea, for the record. I mean, there were Constitution in 1952. There was Constitution in 1997. The issue is, does it respect indigenous rights? That's the reality of the situation. And you got to respect your diversity in order to have a solid solidarity. So
to caveat to what you said, you brought some excellent points. In order, so the first step would be to, once the post-dictator and once Eritrea stabilized with 1 year, and this is just my opinion, 1 year stabilized government, right? That's a democratic type government where the people can vote. Obviously, you're not going to have the key leaders up front. You got to have some sort of government behind the government. You know what I mean? A decoy government in the front. That way, if there's assassination attempts, the country can still be ran with the real governor. That's just my opinion, right? Anyhow, because obviously there's going to be a power vacuum. Once the country stabilized, identify the indigenous tribes, safeguard the first order of business, safeguard the indigenous tribes. Why? As soon as you stabilize Eritrea, you have to say, Afar are indigenous. These part are indigenous. This group is indigenous. Then you safeguard them. How do you do that? You give them rights. You ensure their safety, whether you have a military or whatever, right? Because what end up happening is, as there's a power grab and vacuum, the first to go will be the indigenous. Then you can't rebuild the indigenous once they're gone. That's the problem. So what does America do? I'm not saying put them in a reservation like in America, because obviously Dankalia has their own, you know what I mean? Their own land, their own everything, fishing, all that, right? You just have to safeguard the country in that aspect and then allow them their votes, whether it's 2 representatives from each organization or whatever. But to my crowd, Peace for All brings up a great thing. I think the skepticism is decentralized is due to the perception that empowering the different ethnics would automatically lead to disintegration. How do you debunk that? And yes, that's the biggest fear everyone has. They believe if Muslim takes Eritrea, there's going to be a fight, all this nonsense, boogeyman ideology. May the best leader take Eritrea and lead our people to the promised land. Go ahead, Jonas.
Yeah, so this right here, the reason why they have that perception, just to be clear, is because they're projecting what they're witnessed. They already saw the oppression. So they're thinking if we give them power, they're going to do it back to us. That's the wrong assumption. If anything, you need to think that what's going to solve the problem is the Constitution. What's going to problem is participation, and that's the key to the situation. We have to respect, recognize the situation, because just because somebody has the power, no matter how much power they have, they do not have a right to infringe on your right.
Absolutely. Let's move
So that's
on.
how you think it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like, there's many more questions I have for you, gentlemen. You guys can read. I don't know if you can read what the crowd is posting, but I'm trying to post it so you can read it as well. So what type of progress have you seen among the pro-justice political and activist groups? Now, kulon wala inayam. What does that mean? In 1 year, whether it's Team Freedom, Team Dankalia, Team Afar, TDF, Wudibat leaders, Ya'akil, everyone is up and talking. Within 1 year, people, they try to oppress us by saying no change, no change. Then they try to demoralize you and take your power and your motivation away. But I feel like everywhere you go, if there's some sort of justice speaking or justice affair, it's huge. Just like we seen the Wadid Takabo and Andit concert, right? Huge. Whether they support the government or not, these people understand Eritrea needs change. We might have different ideologies how we want, like I would like Eritrea to be Pleasantville, right? Personally, like no death, nothing, just Pleasantville. But I also understand you have to have a military to defend your nation, which I totally support. How far have we come? I feel like within 1 year, due to what's happening in Tigray, we've totally emerged and are more vocal about what's happened to our country. Yeah, you have a few Hug Defawi and YPFDJ, PFDJ trying to suppress our sound. But would you say we've actually made ground, Ahmed? Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Ahmed.
Um, a great point again, Captain. It's kind of interconnected with the first point. Thank you, Brother Haile Mariam. Always encouraged by your energy and your reaching out. I mean, this is a man that's always reaching out, and this is why I call him a friend. And it's encouraging to hear from people like Haile Mariam to see um, the model that will protect everybody's right will take hold in Eritrea, which is decentralized federation. In fact, that's what we are. I mean, if you look at the map, what we have here in front of us is we are a nation of people that came together. You know, whether it's the Afar, the Tigray, Tigrinya, Saho, Bilen, whatever you want to call, we are a nation. We form a country called Eritrea. Uh, the one thing that is skeptical about is we've went through this process in 1991. The 1991 when the independence of Eritrea was realized, um, the 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 task at hand was to secure liberation, and the liberation of Eritrea was achieved, but we failed to look beyond, and we handed our freedom and independence to the tyrant, to the military, and then we know what happened. So the thing that the Afar are skeptical about is uh, uh, we are uh, wholeheartedly support the removing of this tyrant by military means. The Afar can play its part because of its strategy, because of its history. They can play key part, in fact. And I have been discussing with Haile Mariam to be part of this umbrella forces. Our organization supports this. The issue for us is that unless and otherwise we sit down and draft this charter, that what Haile Mariam envisioned and what Haile Mariam spoke about, the formation of the governance of Eritrea is not chartered or not uh, discussed exhaustively amongst the Eritrean political forces, we are going to be there is going to be mistrust. And this leads to your question: how far the progress between the pro-justice and political forces have become. It is encouraging to see, but at the same time, we dwell on this point because of the experience that we've faced, and we are not going to again fall into that trap again. Who knows? Those who are military pro um, regime change groups, unless everyone. By the way, you mentioned saying, give the FR their rights. Nobody will give FR their rights. The FR rights should be come from the FR themselves. There's no give and take here. The FR should be on the table and take their portion of what they deserve. So unless the FR are in this uh, table to discuss their future and what future of Eritrea will bring about, there's going to be this mistrust. That's why we're saying let's focus on not just moving the regime, but also the day after. What is going to happen once we remove this regime? You're right, transitional government can happen, but it does not prevent us from having this charter or having this document that we see ourselves in the future of Eritrea, in the formation of the tomorrow's Eritrea. So it is very critical. There is very good examples of charters. Haile Mariam very well aware of the ENCDC charter that respects all the what we say. This is decentralized, respects the rights of self-determination for the Afar in the Ankalia. It respects women's rights, it respects all the minorities, it respects strong government, economy, all of it. But at the same time, unless we as political forces are having this discussion, which I'm very happy to discuss this. I think tomorrow we're invited to Yaakl. We'll having that discussion tomorrow, which we're going to raise again. And this is all critical points that we need to discuss now. So yes, there has been advancement in terms of the pro-activist and pro-democracy activists and political forces, but that key point that I'm keep stressing is very important for our unity today, and then tomorrow will be very stronger because of our agreement today. So that's where what is missing right now.
Perfect. Now, each one of you have stated what the benefits and the pros of decentralization versus centralization is. So I would like you to play devil's advocate for 1 second. What are the dangers of decentralization, Chairman Haile Mariam?
Asked about the
Okay,
unique.
go ahead. Can you start over? Mute Generka.
Oh, meet near. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, actually, there are no dangers if they are played by the constitution. I mean, if you really have rules and you follow the rules, there is no problem. Operation of the rules is what makes a problem. Now, for example, our fathers and grandfathers, they agreed to federate with Ethiopia and have our own flag and government. That was in the book. So once you agree and you abide by the constitution, there will not be any problem. But the Ethiopians did not want that. And the emperor wanted one Ethiopia, and they went against the constitution that we agreed upon. From that on, Eritreans said, we cannot live like this, so we'll be independent. So what comes out of this is that the same thing is happening in Ethiopia now. They agreed to have a federal government, and each entity, each kilil, each auraja administers its own, but they wanted to change. Not only the Prosperity Party, but our government, who do not want the same thing in Eritrea, decentralized government in Eritrea, said, we are concerned. This concerns us too. So, in order not to succeed or continue with this arrangement, he intervened militarily in a neighboring country. This is to just uh, uh, to to protect his interest of continuing to be the leader in Eritrea. And not only that, he he proposed that Abiy Ahmed is the guy to govern both countries together. So at that point, if it were the Sudanese president who would come to Abiy and tell him, from now on, you will be the one to govern the Sudan. I mean, the Sudanese people would do something. They wouldn't let him back, but the Eritreans let him back. He sold them. That is completely treason. It's treason to go and sell your country into a neighboring country and say from now on, we are one nation or one country. I mean, this is what's happening in Eritrea, and the Tigrayans are against this. They are for a federal arrangement. They are for decentralization, and they believe this from early on. When we were governed by a federal arrangement, they really wanted that to Tigray as well, because there were about 13 administrative areas in Ethiopia. So they were asking to have the same federal arrangement. That's why the Wayana number one is all about. Wayana means revolution, by the way. So the revolution number was in 1945. So they they put up arms and they fought against the central government, but they were crushed. They were crushed at that time, but not the second time. They want to have their their own self-determination. So they agreed on to a constitution that would allow them to govern themselves. So if anything comes in Eritrea, now we agreed on decentralized. We're not going to define the decentralization by ethnic mean. In Eritrea, it may be a different situation. Uniquely, the Dankalia and the Kunama area is distinctly ethnic minority area. But in many areas in Eritrea, it's mixed. So the outrageous can still be workable. The outrageous can be still workable. But in case of Dankalia, the inhabitants could be predominantly Afari. So we have to consider this. But what scares people is this decentralization will bring the Afaris will be by themselves. The Tigrinya will be this. So the Tigrinya may want to go back to Tigray. All this fear is baseless. We want Eritrea united, but we wanted a decentralized administration, period. And if we agree, we have to agree. We are not going to just go by what groups tell us or by certain, military administration that tells us to do. We will have to sit down and agree and upon a constitution that would govern the whole nation. And if anyone tries to violate that, people will go for in the wrong direction, and that's what we have to fear. We have to agree, and the good thing now we all believe in decentralized. And he said it took maybe more than 20 to 30 years. In case of ENCDC, it's 22 years since we have the first coalition. 22 years. But what I learned from healthcare administration is public policy or public healthcare policies and social change do not come like overnight. It takes time. It takes time, but people are always impatient. So we were impatient, but we know at the end, we are getting united now. From what I see is the political forces have drafted a charter, and almost every organization except the YAAKL and the two organizations now in the field are not included here. But if they are included there, all civic and political organizations will have one charter, and this charter always considers or includes our people inside. It's not only that governs us. We are thinking our people will soon join us for the same purpose. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Excellent informative analysis. Our sister Hada said. Now, one thing I do have a question for you, gentlemen, is as we are speaking about this, what if there's a wrench in the system, Jonas? What if, as we're prepared and the regime falls, suddenly an outside party that's Eritrean takes over and runs the government? What then happens to us in the diaspora with our good ideas and informative analysis? What if do we allow the new regime to run Eritrea to see how well they run it, or do we topple everything and start from scratch? And if we do that, does the Rashida sit on the table as one of the Biheris to make decisions on Eritrea? Go ahead.
Okay, so the first question with that wrench, right? If it came to be, the question is: are they decentralized or not? Are they pro-justice or not? Are they inclusive or not? If the answer is no, they're not any of that, then obviously they're the
But
same.
how would you know, brother Jonas? Because just like Isaias, before he took over completely, he came in as the guy that was going to do this and promise this. Next thing you know, the G15's in jail, and you know what I mean. So many
No,
they can
no,
be elusive.
yeah, you know how I am with hypotheticals. We're gonna know when we know. And so my point is, if they're not releasing prisoners, if they're not allowing media and journalists in right away, if they're not allowing people to go back and forth, if they're not issuing passports, if they're not doing that, then they're part of the same problem. So that's why I say the biggest enemy is injustice. And that's why no matter which individual comes into the position, if they're not for justice, then they are the problem. If they are not for indigenous people, then they are the problem. If they're not for decentralization, they are the problem. So it's not even rocket science. It's just that simple. And so they can't even slow play it, because the minute we see for injustice, the minute we stand up for it, the minute we see atrocities is the minute where that situation ends. The motion that's moving right now, it's already moving. The Eritrean United National Front, it's already moving. And so if they're not in dialogue with each other, then they're part of the problem. Because
So to safeguard what you're saying, which I agree with everything you're saying, if a new regime takes over before we can implement a democratic regime, we should have an Eritrean army in place, transitional Eritrean army in place that will enforce democracy. Therefore, if someone steps in with a bunch of pirates, let's say 2,000 people with guns, we have an Eritrean army already prepared to implement democracy. But we have to be very, very careful in who leads that Eritrean army. See, that's the key. That general has to be trusted within all Eritrean community, all Dankalia, all everywhere within Eritrea, to where he can implement rule of law immediately. You know what I mean? We don't get some general that says, I took power, like the Sudan guy, right? I took power. Now I'm going to tell you how to run this. No, you know what I mean? This is how we safeguard our democracy. We have to think like this. Continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. So in terms of Rashada, at the end of the day, it'll be, in my opinion, it'll be more of a conversation to learn more about what's going on, what's been going on, and so forth. I'm not going to be the one who says you're not Eritrean, you are Eritrean. We're going to see in their behavior if they're pro-justice or not, if they respect indigenous people, if they respect other Eritreans. That's the part of that. But for your question, the original question, in terms of how we have progressed as opposition, I can tell you firsthand, I've seen a lot of progression. I've seen a lot more people talk about justice. I've seen a lot more people talk about solidarity. Hence the reason why I always repeat it, because I want people to talk about it, because that is the foundation that's going to make it work. Then I also seen witnessed the merger of Global Yaaka, which is big. I've seen a lot more younger people getting involved, doing phone banks and so forth. That's inspiring. I've seen younger people doing journalism work. That's inspiring. So the progress is real. I see more platforms like this. And speaking of diversity, that's inspiring. And then we hear people in Clubhouse and so forth, and people having conversations. And then we address the flaws and so forth. The brainwashing that has gone on in the past, the blatant conclusion, the assumptions people make about this, that, and the hatred that they have for a group of people, right? It's just ridiculous. And so it's to the point where there is going to be a system that's going to address grievances. There is going to be a system that de radicalizes people because at the end of the day, you as an individual have the responsibility to speak the truth and be the truth in the situation so that way you can heal your people. If you're part of the problem, it's going to be known because especially if everybody's acting in the right accord of being pro-justice, it's easy to see who the bad person is or who the bad individual is. Easy to see. It's not complicated. You can see by the way they speak. You can see by the way they walk, the way they would talk, the way they think. We know. So it's not complicated. So I've seen a lot of progression. I just want to inspire and make mention that.
Thank you, brother Jonas. This goes to Chairman Ahmed, and then I'll go back to Boya Halmaram. I have a difficult question for Chairman Halmaram, which is going to put him on the spot, but he's
Okay.
experienced enough to answer it. Also for you, Chairman Ahmed, um, Afar. I seen Afar. I'm talking about Eritrean Afar. Uh, I know there's Ethiopian. I get it. As Eritrean Afar, I've never seen so many finally come out. Like they're screaming everywhere. Before I never heard of Afar. Now I come out in Clubhouse.
Like it.
Cap, talk about Afar. Captain, talk about Afar. I go to Instagram. Captain, Afar, Afar. Twitter, Afar. I'm like, I'm there, right? My question to you is, the Afar also has some sort of separation or vacuum within it, right? There's Rosado. There's certain different types of Afar movements, right? Which is cool.
Yeah.
How do you plan on uniting them? Because although you don't need all of them, you need the majority of the people. And you're very well put together. You're very well versed. You're educated. You speak well. How can you unite all the Afars? What is their differences that's causing this vacuum? Because I see a certain group that is kind of like our movement, right? Like
Yeah.
the whole opposition versus Higdef. Well, now here you are, Afar chairman, and you have other Afars that work against you, but you also have Higdef against you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like now
Yeah.
it's you're becoming like Chairman Hailemariam, where you have the whole world to look out, and you got to figure out where to attack, where to speak. You know what I mean? It becomes very complicated.
Yeah.
And if you can answer that, how do you expect to unite the entire Afar group? What can you offer as a president of your organization?
It's very important question, and this is a discussion we've been having amongst us every time, as Afar communities in diasporas. You know, one thing is, as far as the vision for Afar people, there is no division. There is no question about the Afar rights to self-determination, even though some stretch it to um, ways that includes secession, things like that. But in a nutshell, I mean that voice has been reduced now, and in general, the Afar perspective and aspirations for Eritrea is united, and of course our EANC is leading this voice, and you know within your family you will have disagreements. There's will be people who will always, there is jealousies, there is number of things that brings the cause. This does not start with the Afar. It's every community is suffering, whether it's Tigrinya, whether it's within the black community, everywhere you go you will have those divisions. Your people are your worst enemies. You know what I mean? But you need to be focused on your goals, your advancement rights of your people. You don't need to flinch. I mean, if you give way to these kind of negative things, you don't achieve your goals. So um, the divisions that you talk about is mainly in the diaspora, but as Afar leader, been doing this for many years. Our work itself explains what we're doing for our people. Whether it's traditional leaders with influential Afar leaders, we are in discussion and how the FR self-determination will come about, and there is no division when it comes to that. But other things are homeworks that we need to do from our part. As the like I said, it's a family affair. We are going to resolve it in a way our traditional leaders have resolved it. There is something called uh, customary laws. Again, we're going to go back to mob law, gatherings, discussions, and things. The FR have the traditional way of resolving these things. So we will certainly explore all those options, but the division, even though it may seem too much on the diaspora chats, it's not that significant.
Thank you, sir. Let me know if I could be of any assistance to reach
Absolutely.
across the aisle. I'm always available. So is
We
Jonas.
always,
I
yeah.
think Chairman Hailemadam had something to add before my question. Go ahead,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. How the thing is, how do we guarantee the democratic rule or system in Eritrea? Is two things. One is empowering the people. Empower the people and build institutions. If the court works, if the army does its job, and everything else, will be okay. The thing is, we have to let the people alone. Starting from a family. The families have been disrupted. Their kids are taken to Sawa. Everyone after 18, they don't own it. I mean, people raise kids and they want to see them grow and prosper. But it's not that. It's like the Eritrean families are like machines. They produce soldiers. That's it, and nothing else. And this has to end. If the families are left alone to raise their own kids, have faith in their own faith, and then raise their kids their way, and then if we leave every Eritrean village to rule its own affairs or to administer its own affairs, you wouldn't need anything else. I mean, leave them alone. But now every family, every person is ruled under one person. I mean, you cannot even move. You need the papers to move from place to place. So if if people are liberated and then empowered, and then we build institutions. Only building institutions can guarantee the democracy or the pluralistic system in Eritrea. So that's what I wanted to add upon what Brother Ahmed had been saying.
Thank you, sir. It's funny how EPLF. There's some EPLF folks here in the crowd watching, and that's okay. Everyone's welcome. We're all thick-skinned, right? Whatever. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Uh, I would like to make it a note, and this was going to be my question for Chairman Haile Mariam. To me, Higdef is over. Shabia is over. All that's over. We're going to take Eritrea, start fresh. For those that don't like it, get down or lay down. There's a saying: get down or lay down. It's really that simple. For me, there's no gray area. Either you get down or you lay down. One way or another, there's going to be change. It's just how you accept it. And whether we change it or God change it, the world is always changing. It's always evolving. And everyone's looking for freedom. Because without freedom, there's no justice, solidarity, or peace, like my brother Yona says. But the question for Chairman Halamarem, now, I know you lead a large organization, and that's very respectable. How do you expect to manage and place all the oppositional organizations under your umbrella? In fact, if I'm noticing all of them are starting to come and gather with you guys, right? They're all starting to merge. They're all now is going to get to the point where you're going to have expert media because there are already medias that have been doing this for years join your organization. Expert soldiers, expert politicians, spokesperson. You're going to become this conglomerates with constituencies that's huge. How do you plan to manage that? And how do you plan to manage the naysayers that say they're justice seekers, but literally hate Tigrayans and anything to do with Tigray? Like we have people in the crowd that are like, Isaias must be removed, but I hate Tigrayans, which has absolutely nothing to do Liking or hating Tigrayans has nothing to do with liberating Eritrea or Afar or Dankali or nothing, right? Now, if you were to work with TDF to liberate Eritrea, that's a whole different ballgame. That's all. That's something that you political leaders have to sit down at the table and discuss, right? But despite all the hatred, how do you plan to organize and execute this move?
Well, we are pushing towards uh, ending this division among ourselves. Like I said, it has been more divided before. Now it's coming together, uh, and we have to think about what our people uh, what our people need. It's not about the people in the diaspora, with the various opinions. The opinion back home is they want to be free. They really want to be free. They want uh, to uh, uh, to administer their own lives and affairs, and to be left alone. But the people are outside Eritrea. Is it due to ignorance or due to certain interests that they have inside Eritrea, being a business or any other thing, or just to have the freedom to go back and forth to Eritrea? That's why they are supporting the government. There is no other reason. You don't wanna show your taxes to your neighbor, but here you have to submit your tax documents to PFDJ. Why would you need? People hide it from IRS here, but you have to expose it to someone. Uh, like in San Diego, we have one PFDJ ruler. You have to submit it to him. Why do you need this? Why do you imprison yourself within the system? So those, once we win against this government, everybody will be united, and we will not be vengeful. We cannot be vengeful. uh, we heard from all their behaviors, and how they treat the opposition and what they say about us is is is, is difficult to comprehend. But the thing is, we have to forgive and join hands, and go back home, and let the people sit together, and agree on how to govern our own selves. And we have to always think about uh, governing our country. Do not need any intervention. We have to think free about on how to lead our own country. There are so many forces now coming to the Eritrean affairs, starting from people who have dreams of uniting Eritrea and Ethiopia, from some dreams having to establish uh, uh, a region, Tigray region, that could be called Agazian. All these things are really against our national interest, and it's also against the national interest of Tigray. We have to keep our affairs to ourselves, and we have to keep Eritrea free from intervention, being it regional forces or even superpower forces. The Chinese are now, if they are to build railroads, they will have their military to guard their interests, and this military will be oppressive. So we want them out. We will have to decide on how to run our businesses, on how, we will have, well, political parties will be competing on how they differ from each other. There will be economic policies that will be declared by various political organizations, and people have to choose which one is better for Eritrea. But we should not let any foreign intervention within Eritrea um, to sway either way. We should be very, very careful and Eritrea is in a sensitive area, and we have to be able to maintain our traditional, religious, and all other aspects that united us for centuries and thousands of years, and we should not be disrupted by these uh, interventions that we see from various countries like Turkey and uh, Emirates and so on. So uh, I think this is what scares people. But if we are going to educate ourselves, I think we have to see what Tigrayans are saying. The Tigrayans wanted a constitutional governance within Ethiopia, and they want to govern themselves. They are not saying anything else. If there are, I mean, when I talk about Tigray, it's the government of Tigray, and the ruling government is TPLF. If TPLF is telling us anything that we don't like, we can say it. But if individuals are saying that, it could be reflective of some people within the government, but we cannot dwell on that, and then that becomes the main subject than the other. So if they are telling us, we have to keep the word and check them. But it's not, if they encourage those fringe movements, that talk about Agazi and how they will treat Muslims in Eritrea, if they encourage them or accommodate them, that would be against our national interest, and we have to talk with them on this. If they are encouraging them, especially, you know, but we didn't see that. There are things, said by individuals, and it remains there. There are so many individuals saying so many things about Tigray. That doesn't mean the Eritrean organizations are responsible for this. We are not responsible. I think we say things responsibly, especially the Eritrean political forces. They communicate with the government. They communicate with the leadership. They communicate with the people, and we know our boundaries, but we should not cross the boundaries. And we have to guarantee this. We have to assure our people that we will govern our own affairs. And if anything, military, it will be an Eritrean-led military. We'll get any assistance from any government, any individual, any association, but it will be an Eritrean-led forces, and it will be done or conducted according our plan. It will plan it and conduct it, and this is what should assure our people, and that the way Tigrayans are treated now is really inhumane. In fact, the way to demonize them like this, to say these are like you can it's I was listening to Daniel Kibret's video yesterday, and how he imagines, or how he he describes them, and then he wanted this to the kids to know, the generation of Ethiopians to know on what Tigrayans are. If you are this kind of hate, I mean, this is in fact, the international community and the human rights agencies are looking into this, and if we are fanning these feelings as Eritreans, we are not helping ourselves, because it doesn't stop there. Because Daniel Kibret says it goes beyond. It even says people who like, they shouldn't they shouldn't exist, not only exist now, but should not exist in the future. People like them. He said like them. I mean, who do they look like? So if this Tigray on this side and the Tigrinya on the other side are the same, he doesn't want the existence of everybody. To rule Eritrea and Ethiopia together, this Tigray region has to be eliminated. This is in their formula of the two forces, the PFDJ and the Prosperity Party. Their plan is disrupted because of Tigray's position, and they have to remove him. So Eritreans are doing all against their national interest if they are going against Tigray at this time. If there are issues to be raised or discussed, we'll do it with them. And the people to people communication has to continue. And we have to stop this hate because we are hating ourselves.
Thank you, thank you. No, you said that perfectly. Yeah, myself and brother Jonas, we deal with a lot of. I'll literally come out on live and be like, Tigray is the wall between Prosperity Party and Eritrea, the only wall remaining before Abiy Ahmed is allowed to take Dankalia, before Abiy Ahmed is allowed to utilize anything he wants in Eritrea. In fact,
Yeah.
when Isaias Afwerki said, "You can lead us," they opened the borders. All the Amharas came to Eritrea and partied before the people from Eritrea that were outcasted can even come back to their own country.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my whole point. People, as soon as they hear this, they'll say, "Oh, you're TPLF or you're way in it." You get tired of that nonsense. No, you just need to educate yourself. Your closest relative is next door. Period. At the end of the day,
Exactly.
depends how you look at that.
Yeah.
Depending who you are and where you're from within Eritrea and where your relative resides. For the Tigrina speaker, my closest relative is in Tigray as a Tigrina speaker. For the Arab speaker, his closest relative is whatever border and country he is originally from, right? And so on. Rashida, Kunama, and so on. So, and that's the whole point. So, but to hate a group of people and to wish them death. Now, before we close, gentlemen, I'm gonna give you each 1 minute each, and then you could go to closing remarks.
Brother Ahmed, you go first.
Yeah, brother Ahmed, Chairman Ahmed, Eritrea is Eritrea, right? Since the freedom, Eritrea is Eritrea. Okay.
Thank you,
When the
Captain.
time comes, and you, brother Ahmed, and the Afar, our Eritrean brothers, so on. When the time comes, the regime is removed. Who answers? Now, only speak for Dankalia and Afars, right? Who answers for all the death, mayhem, rape, murder, thievery, killing that happened next door? How does Afar play into that? Do they do Afar have to answer for any of that if they were the indigenous tribe and they weren't even having a say so? In fact, Ethiopian Afars are also getting killed at the moment. I know that too, right? So who's gonna answer for all that's happening in Tigray on the Eritrean side when we remove the regime? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's very important question. I mean, the accountability should start at home. We believe. I personally think even if Isaias were to be dead, found dead tomorrow in his house, he what he has left are the scars of atrocities that he left against Eritreans should not be forgotten, should be accountable, and this injustice has to be brought forth to the world to see, and full investigations of the crimes that have being committed in closed door behind closed doors need to be exposed. This also reflects and whatever crimes that Eritrea is responsible across the border in Ethiopia against the Tigrayans and other Ethiopians. So all of this is to say that we need to not uh, let this government to continue to its disastrous and criminal activities with inside Eritrean borders and outside Eritrean borders, and needs as soon as possible this regime needs to be removed by any means. Um, as far as the FR is concerned, of course, our priority post Afwerki. We don't want to see. We don't see why the FR child need to be deprived of its ethnic identity. It needs to be deprived and live in poverty. while you have all these resources, and all this uh, uh, natural resources and geostrategic importance that we have seen. So our priority, of course, is to make sure Eritreans live in peace and democracy, and each and our rights and rights and aspirations are guaranteed in the constitution that we all approve on of. And then, within that discussion amongst all of the political forces and opposition groups, I think our future is bright. Once this cancerous regime is removed, the entire regime, including Tigrayans and the Afars and everybody, will live in peace. So I'll leave it at that. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
thank
the
you,
opportunity.
thank you, sir, and I appreciate that, Jonas. So let me rephrase the question, brother Jonas. I understand Bademe War. I understand TPLF, EPLF work together, remove Jabha. I understand the history. I understand uh, G15 was removed when they asked for rule of law prior or before or after. I don't know. I think it was after. I understand Isaias Afwerki's tactics. I understand Lu'ukh Yukab Haile Selassie. I get it. He wants to empower, become king of Ethiopia and Eritrea combined, right, as one confederation. Is there? Do we offer reparations economically to Tigray once we're a stabilized country? And what type of reparations can you offer as a peace offering for what this regime has done to the people of Tigray? Obviously, we can't offer land because we don't have enough land, right? But Tigray, did become its own nation away from Ethiopia, do we say, hey, for 1 year we offer you this, for 1 year we offer you potash, gold, or do we work together to economically boom as a way of repairing reparations and
Okay.
providing some sort of I'm sorry for what happened by Isaias Afwerki, since this war had nothing to do with us?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. We definitely owe them reparations. And with that reparation, it was going to come with cooperation in terms of rebuilding the nations. And then at the same time, that can be done through physical labor, of course, and that can be done through financial resources. It could be done with all the above. The idea is we're creating a relationship that recognizing both nations is a critical piece. And then as moving forward, decentralized government, of course, and then decentralized government on that end too. What we have is a society that is going to be stable. You can't have a neighbor who's centralized. You can't have a neighbor who's a dictatorship. It doesn't work that way. And the evidence is the reality. The past 30 years is the evidence of that. Oppression does not work. And so with that, that's how we safeguard it. And then by us doing that, we're bringing peace to ourselves. Reparation is bringing peace to yourself. And then also you have to do what do you call it? Memorials year after year after year, remembrance year after year after year, and then to take it to another level, the grievances as of right now, of the recent things, has to be addressed. The truth and reconciliation from the civil war with TPLF and EPLF fighting Jabha, that has to be addressed. That's more reparations back then.
That's a great point. That would bring healing for all the people, the Jabha children
our
that were
generation,
pushed out.
yeah, before us, exactly. And then the next one is the remembrance of the 98 war. We have to address that. In fact, I take it to another level and build schools on the war fronts of where the wars were fought. Because now you have an institution there. You have a remembrance, and that school, that area is going to be a place where for education to rebuild. It's a sign, right? And so the vision of the future is real, and I can envision it. A lot of people can envision it. Now it's just a matter of doing it. So with that, in terms of the decentralization concept, the safeguard for decentralization is participation. You as an individual have to participate. What does that mean? You have to participate with the activism groups. You have to Communicate with the political groups. Tell them what your wants or needs are. That's the reality of it. Because at the end of the day, oppression does not work. Not respecting does not work. Not recognizing does not work. So what does work? Respect works. Speaking truth works. Reconciliation, recognizing stuff so you can create an opportunity for reconciliation works. So if you know all this works, the question is, what are you practicing? So I'm going to leave it with that for that question. Yeah.
Do your part, everyone, and we can all, if everyone was active as us on this panel, and I know a lot of people are that are speaking, imagine how much quicker and faster we can make change. With that said, we're going to close out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you I'm going to give them the mic, and then I'm going to give you each one last moment what your messages are to the people. First is Chairman Al-Mariam. I call him Chairman Al-Mariam. He's president of his group. Josiah Ahmed's president of his group. And I know my co-chairman is Jonas Woldu, also on Team Freedom. These are highly respected people. They all have a lot of rank. So I don't know whether to call him president, sir. I don't know. I just call him Chairman. Chairman Al-Mariam, your go, sir. Your goodbye to the people. I think you're on mute. Let me unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the question was, what do we offer them to settle the grievances? I would say we offer them love, not an inch of a land, but love is very important. Besides, who is accountable? To us, it's Isaias Afwerki is accountable. He's responsible for all the damage done in Eritrea and in Ethiopia. But we cannot judge about what happened in Tigray, except in the refugee areas, because they have their own institution. They have their, the Ethiopians have to deal with their own occurrences, with what happened, and what it could be. Abiy Ahmed would be responsible. I mean, but it's not me to judge. But one thing we know, these two people conspired against Tigray and that was to undermine our national sovereignty and independence. That was the bottom line. So if we get our independence and sovereignty intact, then we'll deal with our own grievances inside, and I think that's where our task is needed to work in depth. The second thing I want to mention is, what can we do to unite more? We are having less and less groupings now. We are converging together into one. And unfortunately, tomorrow, the BITO members, or the ENC, DNC political organizations and civic organizations are not going, the leaders are not going to participate in the IACL invitation, but many of our members will be there. There will be leaders who will be participating there. I encourage you to tell everyone to come together. Tomorrow is the day. It's wise of them. They called. They took this responsibility, and we commend them for doing that. But one more thing, we have to unite all the forces, and we are ready. The Eritrean political forces are ready to work with individuals, with community representatives, ready to work with civic movements, including IACL. Let's unite and get our charter together, and then have our one command army on the ground. That should be done, as a Christmas gift to our people. It has to be done sooner than later, and there is nothing to stop us. There is willingness. The political leaders are ready. IACL is ready, and the Eritrean army is ready, and our people is ready. And our people is ready to help. They are waiting for us, and this is the message I want to send for tomorrow. And you will be there, and I'm sure you will have a successful day tomorrow.
Thank you, Chairman Madam. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming. The people are pleased. They're saying this is a great discussion, gentlemen. I will go to your brother Jonas, and then to end it with Chairman Ahmed. Go ahead, Jonas.
Yeah, so my conclusion is this. The number one thing that we have to focus on is justice. And if we focus on protecting indigenous rights, right, that's a valuable piece. No matter who's governed, indigenous rights has to be protected. And then this decentralization concept of governance is a necessity because of our diversity. We have to recognize that centralization did not work. And to safeguard decentralization so you don't have any kind of fear is participate. You're going to know who you are as an individual if you participate. You're going to know if you're a hater, and you're going to know if you're pro justice if you participate. You have the right to assemble. You have the right to earn income. You have the right to a religion. You have the right of free press. All this is what we're protecting with decentralization. You want to be governed in your region and so forth. That's perfect, right? You have it, having respect for your neighbor, a decentralized governance neighbor. That's perfect. It's about that time. You have the benefit of being a diaspora. Now it's time to use that benefit, leverage that benefit to better the society of your people. So, in my closing remarks, participate, participate, participate for inclusivity, for justice, and for democracy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
brother
Thank you.
Jonas.
You're doing a good job, Captain and Jonas and um, Chairman Ahmed. I enjoyed the panel, and hope we'll do more. This is just the beginning, and then the more we do this, the more we end the dictatorship sooner.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brother Ahmed, Chairman Ahmed, floor is yours. You represented the Afar people very well. I want to thank you. You're always welcome to come to Team Freedom. In fact, you're also welcome to use Team Freedom media site to bring all the Afars and unite or host meetings, whatever you like. You got full reign, just like Chairman Haile Mariam has. That's my father. I mean, that's kind of so he has that leverage, right? I grew up under him, so
I-
but you, brother, you have
thank
full,
you, David. Thank
yeah,
you. I'm
full
proud of
leverage.
you.
Is the real
Yeah.
elder.
I'm really proud of you.
Oh no, I grew up under Boy Halaman, like as a baby, so he knows me inside out, but
That's
in
great.
diapers. But go ahead, brother, Chairman Ahmed.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate, enjoyed this discussion. We need to do more of this. And my message in closing remark is that uh, for Eritreans, we need to see ourselves, of course, the end goal is to remove the this tyrannical regime, but we need to see beyond that. We need to see ourselves in formation of this. How are we going to govern ourselves? This is why the topic today is extremely dear to us as an Afar people, people who have been historically marginalized. We want to play our part in uniting this opposition front, either politically or militarily or and in every culturally in every aspect of Eritrean society. So my message is that let's not undermine or look aside this piece of paper. Documentation is critical. We need to have this documentation ahead of us so that we can trust each other. We can come closer to each other. We have enough wealth to go over to all Eritrea. It's only 4 or 5 million people. We have enough wealth not just to Eritrean citizens, but beyond Eritrean borders. We have enough sea. We have enough ports. We have enough resources. Our Eritrea is enough for all of us, but
Yeah.
we cannot cheapen our struggle, cheapen our self determination, or cheapen or undermine our aspirations as a people. So we need to unite, having that goal. Well, let's not be selfish. Let's not be political elites or something like that. We need to protect our. All of us need to take care of our unity. An Afar child, like I said, no need for Afar child to be impoverished when he lives across the sea, where he can fish freely, don't need to be bombarded in his own safe home by United Arab Emirates or others. This should not come from the Afar mouth. It should come from every Eritrean's mouth. We need to protect the rights of all of our citizens, whether it's an Afar, whether it's Tigrinya, whether it's Ibsaho or Bilain or Kunama for that matter. So that's how we need to look at, and do not try to undermine when the Afar, for example, when we talk about ethnic rights, this we don't want to impose our will on other Eritreans, but we also are proud as an Eritrean Afar, as ethnic group that have predated Eritrea. We are proud of our identity. When the Kero or when the Oromo are saying we are, how do you say, Oromo Jirtu? When he says Oromo Jirtu, he means as an Oromo, I need to respect my right. When Tigrayans are saying I number a kikin, or we're not going to be enslaved, you need to respect that. When the
Oh yeah.
Afar said we don't want to be enslaved in our country, looked upon as a second class citizens, you got to respect that. That's how we're going to build a united country, a united Eritrea. So that's my message. Let's unite. Let's have that documentation written down so we can get along and so we can remove
Thank you
this
very much.
regime.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
for
you,
the
thank you,
opportunity.
thank you,
Appreciate
Yahwat,
it.
Botat, Kubrat. Thank you all for coming. I want to
Thank
say
you,
thank you
guys.
very
Thank
much.
you, Jonas.
My
Bye-bye.
last words to the panel, the people that were here, you guys got to see leaders. These aren't just regular people off the street that I'm interviewing. These are leaders, Eritrean leader, Afar Eritrean, Eritrean this. They're Eritrean out, right? But they're representing their people and their organizations, and they're collaborating to bring unity and peace. So if you're the diaspora and the youth, please pay attention. I don't need you to come to Aguila and dance with me and drink with me. I need you to stand up for the people and call them directly and say, hey, how may I be of assistance? How can I help? I might not be able to go fight myself, but maybe I can offer you resources, money, help, labor, anything, everything helps. So do your part. We'll do our part and we'll make it happen, my brothers and sisters. With that said, before we say goodbye, I would like to say goodbye with some Afar music. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace to my Afar brothers. One love.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Thank
all.
you.
We'll be coming back on YouTube more. I'll have these gentlemen host
Yes,
their
thank
own
you.
shows so our YouTube can grow. We need to get more active on YouTube, Facebook,
Thank you.
Twitter.
Thank you.
We're killing it
All
on
right, see
Twitter.
you guys. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye now.
Yes. Good night. Merry
Thanks so much.
Christmas.